Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I am Daniel Edwards, the Corporate and Public Affairs Coordinator here at the NHT. And today we're going to be discussing one of our newest initiatives, our Employer Amnesty Program. And we're also going to be doing a little bit of reminders about the responsibilities that you, our valued employers, have to our employees. And with me this morning is my presenter rather, Mr. Michael Mullings, who is the manager of the compliance department at the NHT's Clarendon branch. So as I said, Mr. Mullings will be taking us through our amnesty program, as well as some of those little tips and those reminders that you employers need to know to make your employees' lives a little bit better. So, Mr. Mullings, we're going to be talking about our amnesty program, right? But before we get into that, can you give me a little bit of a reminder of those tax and those deductions that employers have to make on behalf of their employees?
Good afternoon, Daniel, and thank you for having me. Yes, the statutory rules of Jamaica provides that employers and employees have to pay certain taxes and statutory obligations. First among them, you have the PAYE, which is the income tax. That is 25%. We have National Housing Trust contributions. That is a 5%. 3% for the employer and 2% for the employee. We have national insurance, very important. That is a total of 6%. 3% which is deducted from the employee's salary, and 3% which is paid by the employer. And of course, we have education tax. 3.5% is paid by the employer, and 2.25% for the employee.
So these deductions, right? Let me just step back a little bit and ask you, are these deductions optional? So for example, I just have 3 employees. I'm an employer. I'm just starting out. Are these deductions mandatory or are they optional?
They're absolutely mandatory. As I said, they are required by law, because we couldn't leave it up to people to choose which taxes they pay, because the country has to be developed and benefits have to be administered. So these deductions are in law and must be done by the employer and paid over to the relevant statutory bodies, including NHT.
So then how is it, or how does an employer then, so they're legally mandated, but how then, what system is in place for employers to file what is called its annual returns, right?
Yes.
What system is in place for employers to file annual returns?
Well, employers have a duty, as we said, to file. Once they register online, via the Tax Administration Jamaica portal,
right,
that's where they would go to file their returns. And it's easy. You log into your portal, to the TAJ portal, and your accounts are there, and you will see the returns that are there to be filed, and you click on it, and you input their information. Larger employers, they can upload documents to the TAJ website containing their returns for the employees.
So a company that has 500 staff members, they don't have to enter the return
individually. No.
Individually.
No, they can have their own systems internally once it's compatible with TAJ, and they would upload the information to the system.
Okay.
Easy, yes.
So you have the annual returns, but I know you also have a monthly return.
Yes, the annual return is the SO2,
right,
and the monthly return is the SO1. That is filed by the 14th of the following month.
Okay, so if you have a yearly return,
Yes.
why are we going to bother our employers to file something on a monthly basis?
Well, Daniel, it is important for tax purposes that the relevant authorities receive income throughout the year. Because as you would understand, the government cannot wait until the end of a year to collect all the revenue, right? And also for accountability purposes, we want to ensure that employers file returns each month to indicate who was employed for the particular month. Because for instance, for NHT, benefits, we give persons loans right throughout the year. And if somebody comes to the NHT, say for example, in March or May, we would want to have the information up to April when the person comes, so that we can see that yes, this person contributed from this employer up to the month of April. Prior to the requirement for a monthly return, we would have to wait until the end of the year to administer that benefit. Or where a person comes for contribution refunds, we'd have to wait until the end of the year to know that this person was employed to that particular employer. So
Okay.
that is why a monthly return is very critical.
Right, and I think it would help the employers as well to
Yes.
have the system
Yes.
and the documents in
I agree,
check. You know what I mean?
absolutely, because yeah.
sometimes persons employ persons and they forget to ask, for certain documents.
Right, and as you mentioned that, it is important once employers, when you engage somebody, that you ask for these documents up front. You need to get your the person's NIS card, the person's TRN, because you don't know, you might employ somebody and you expect that they are going to be with you for a long time, but the person might leave for abruptly, and you
Right.
don't get that information, and then when it's time to file a return, that is when you're in problems, Right, so that is why it is important to get those documents up front.
So it's important for you, as soon as you employ someone, it may not happen instantaneously, but as soon as possible, get all the outstanding documents, TRN, NIS, all the relevant documentation, because it makes that employee's lives and your life easier, because you don't want a scenario where somebody comes, tries to get a benefit, and there's nothing on record for them on the system.
Absolutely, and that happens from time to time. And we know that employers, you are running your business. You have a farm, somebody resigns yesterday or don't come today.
Right. What kind of farm is it?
You have a chicken
chicken
farm,
farm?
any kind of farm.
Right. Mhm.
And so, you want somebody today. The person might not have the documents when you're employing them today, but you have to follow up to get the information so that by the time you're ready to file your returns, that is available. And you're not running around trying to find the person who would have left your employment to get that information.
Right. So so we said the monthly returns are due by the 14th of the following month, but when
Yes.
are the annual returns due?
Annual returns become due on the 1st of January of the following year.
New year, new thing,
New
right?
year.
Start fresh,
Yes.
submit everything.
So you should begin your preparation, I would say, early December,
Right.
especially if you're a larger employer. Early December, you begin your preparation, so that by the time the year starts, when you finish, sing Happy New Year, you're ready to file your,
Right.
your annual return. So we encourage employers to do that. There's a deadline for the end of March, but we want the returns to be filed long before that.
So it becomes overdue at the end of March.
It becomes overdue at the
but
end
it's
of March.
Due in January.
Due in January, that's right.
So, we said it's legally mandated, but what if somebody fails to submit between January to March? What repercussions will they face?
Well, penalties are two-tiered. When you fail to file, there's a $5,000 per month penalty for late filing of return.
Right.
That is one. If you continue to fail to file that return,
So repeat that for me. There's a
$5,000 per month. That is
$5,000
accrued
per month.
every month on the TAJ system. Right? So if you file your return in May, April and May, that's 2 months, $10,000 is added to your account already. But also, the NHT can take legal action to recover this annual return, because employers should know that it is a criminal offense to not file the annual return.
Right.
Because when you don't file the annual return, the NHT cannot know, right, the persons that would have been employed to you, the full gamut of the information as it relates to the persons that would have been employed to you for the particular year. That's why it is important. And so the repercussion, we will, in terms of the process, you will be given a 14 days notice to say file the return within this time.
Right.
After that, another
Because
another
we're not
notice.
just going to come at you, we're going to give you ample notice
Absolutely,
to get your
because
ducks in a row.
We have a team of compliance inspectors who manages the portfolio
A
of
very
employers.
hard-working team,
Absolutely.
might I add.
So they should be talking to the employers to say, I don't see your return, what is
Right.
happening? And so after that notice would have expired, if it's still not filed, you will get a legal notice, we call a demand notice, giving another 14 days to file a return. And if it's still not filed, then it can go to a case where a summons is served on the employer to attend court to explain why the return wasn't filed.
But in a day and age where it's so easy to file. I don't see or understand why somebody would want to find themselves on that end of the spectrum, because not only are you going to be fined, but you're going to affect how your employees can access a benefit, because the truth be told, that housing is so important, particularly now, and everybody wants to access some form of shelter. And so not only are you preventing your employees from doing so, but you are also going to end up on the wrong side of the law
Absolutely, and it's
and
quite
ruin your
easy.
reputation.
And it's easy, Daniel. And we do
It's
offer.
very easy.
It's easy, and we do offer assistance to employers in
So
terms
you
of
offer
yes.
assistance.
So if you
Oh,
yes, so if you have your, so imagine this, you have your log-on information,
right.
and you don't know how to work out the various things. The inspector will help you to say, all right, this is how you work out the NHT based
Right.
on this income, and
So
we'll help you
every
to put it
step of the
together to
way.
say this is how you should file the return, and you can go on and you put in the information, and you file it. So there's really no excuse in terms of employers having a need to file a return late.
And we can reach out to you. What is your email address if persons want to just reach out to you? They here now, they tuned in. I
Yes.
just want to shoot an email. What's an email address I can just shoot
Right.
a quick email
So the
to?
compliance, the NHT compliance has a mailbox,
Right.
you know, but my personal email is mmullins@nht.gov.jm, and you can, the employers can write, request information, seek clarity, you know, find out who is their inspector if they are not sure,
Right.
so that they can get that one-on-one assistance.
And persons tend, and it's a, you know, it's a thing where if persons are a bit late with payments, you know, it's a very practice thing where persons are late. It don't matter if it's with the NHT or wherever,
Yeah,
they
man.
tend to hide.
Yes, Daniel, you're
But
saying it's a
in
matter of
this-
habit.
Right.
Right. So yes, delinquency is habitual in a lot of cases.
But
We
don't
do have
hide.
employers. Yes, we do have employers who fall on hard times. But as you rightly said, do not hide, because it's best. I know how we feel when we have a debt for someone, but it's best to approach the NHT. We are reasonable. We are reasonable, and talk to your compliance inspector, your compliance manager, to seek a favorable agreement to settle whatever outstanding contributions you have.
Time for everybody. The pandemic has happened, totally unexpected, and we get it. Life happens. Things happen, and this is what life is. And at the NHT, we're a very understanding institution. That's why we put things in place for our mortgagors. We offered our mortgagors a moratorium on their mortgage payments. We also offered our mortgagors a fresh start to recalculate their mortgage payments as well. And we wanted to do something for our employers. So we introduced the Employers Amnesty Program, because we understand it's not only mortgagers having a difficult time, you know, companies are also having a tough time. They're not earning at the pace that they used to, and they're not earning as much as they used to. And things are happening. They're trying to recalibrate themselves. So we have established this program to help them. So tell me more about the Employers Amnesty Program. What does it involve? Why is it important? Why should persons jump onto it?
Yes, Daniel. With the onset of the novel coronavirus pandemic, you know, last year the economy shrunk significantly,
Right.
double-digit decrease in terms of
Mhm.
economic activity. So this would have affected a lot of our employers.
Right.
We know that. So the NHT has decided to offer a 6-month period where employers can get a waiver of the interest on the employer's portion of the contributions. Remember earlier I said that the contribution is made up of 3% for the employer's portion and 2% for the employee portion. This amnesty is on the employer's portion, that 3% portion. So it will help employers to reduce their liability to the NHT by up to as 100% of that interest on the 3%. That period for the 100%, however, was from July 1 to August 31. But there's still a significant savings to be realized right now, because you can get a 75% waiver
Right.
from between September 1 and October 31, and 50% from November 1 to the end of the year.
Right.
So the amnesty is crucial, and it is a tool that we're using to assist employers during this difficult period. So employers can apply for the amnesty. They can go on the website, complete the application, or they can go into their local NHT branch, complete the application, speak with your inspector. In order to qualify, you have to file all your outstanding returns, both SO2, SO1, that is the annual return, and the monthly return,
Right.
and pay up all your outstanding principal payments. All right?
So the employee's contribution. So what you're saying, in other words, that for you to benefit
Yes.
from the amnesty, you have to file all outstanding returns.
All outstanding returns.
And also pay up all outstanding
Principal,
employee.
yes, contributions.
Right.
And any interest on the employee portion
Right.
of the contribution.
Mhm.
Right? Because remember, when we refund the contributions to the employees, we pay it back with interest. Right?
Interest. Talk about that interest.
Yes.
Talk about that. Talk about that interest, because people don't know about that interest. I don't know where else would offer you 2%. Talk. I'm gonna let you
No,
talk about
absolutely.
the
Yeah, man.
interest.
For refunds, contributors, when you get back your refunds,
Right.
when you wait 8 years and you get it back, you get it back with interest. So if you contributed
I
$100
tell you,
in
Sally,
2014,
it's not just for house, man.
Yeah.
It's a saving.
Absolutely.
We tell you, and that is what we always say, that contributions are, people always say, and in talking about the narrative and the terminology, we always say it's statutory deductions, but really and truly, it is like a savings tool. It doesn't operate like a normal tax, although you're mandated
no,
to
absolutely,
do
it is, because we have
Mhm.
that contribution is very important.
Mhm.
Because sometimes people, when they get the refunds, it comes at just the perfect time.
Exactly.
Also nowadays we have what the contribution refunds towards deposit. That is on the loan side. But if you
We can touch on that quick. Right.
yeah, the contribution that you have that are not yet due for refund.
Mhm.
So you're getting a loan and you have a house that you want to buy, and you need to make up on the deposit. You can use that money that is not yet due for refund to help you towards paying that deposit. So
It's not just the deposit, it's other fees.
other little
So
things
other
as well.
housing-related
Yes, and that has been
fees.
expanded. Yeah, so yes, absolutely.
Because we know
absolutely.
the associated cost, and every make a mobile.
That is right,
All
Daniel.
the associated housing fees, legal fees,
That is correct.
surveyor's
That is
report.
correct.
You
Even
can use our CRTD facility
Absolutely,
towards
that is correct.
And it's not like that. It just does disappear into thin air. You
Right.
earn interest
Definitely
on that
so,
contribution.
definitely so.
And it's about 2% per annum.
Yes.
2% per annum interest.
Yeah.
I think that is better than any. I don't know if any commercial banks are on, but it is better than the rates.
I agree. I do
By
agree.
a commercial bank. So.
Oh, and also, Daniel, before you move on, the period of amnesty in terms of the years of that we'll allow the waiver on,
Yes.
it is from 2013 to the present period.
So it's
Right.
just from
That is
2013
right.
to the present.
If
period.
employers have arrears before, they can come in and talk to us, and we'll work something out for that. But the approved period of arrears is from 2013 to the present.
Right. So there you have it. Come in, have a conversation. If you're owed before 2013, come in, have a conversation. We'd be more than willing to help. So when you registered, we asked you to send in your compliance-related queries. So at this time, we're going to address a few of those questions. And please, if you have not submitted your questions, now is the time to submit them in the chat. We'll try to answer them during the presentation, but if they aren't answered, one of our officers will be reaching out to you within the next 24 hours. So send in your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So, and before I forget, at the end of the presentation, I think I said it earlier, there's going to be a survey. We're going to ask you to complete that survey to help us, to help you. All right, so I have a question that just came in here, Mr. Mullings. It says, school is closed. What should the institution do with the non-collection of school fees? Parents are adamant that they're not paying for online classes. This is a tricky one. What should the institution do
Yes.
due to non-collection of school fees? So you have a school fees are not being collected. Parents are refusing to pay for online classes. What does that
Right.
institution do?
Yes. So, like a school, like any other business,
Mm-hmm.
depends on revenue. So,
Right.
revenue would be the school fees. So, we have a reduction in revenue. As I said before, the school needs to come into the NHT
Right.
and talk to us. Tell us that, the students are not paying, we're not collecting school fees. Our income has reduced by so and so. I can afford to pay this amount per month for this period of time. Under normal circumstances, say for example, you would say, all right, we would give you 3 months to pay up your arrears. But in these times, we have to give a longer period of time to our employers to settle the debts that they have. So as we go back to what was said before, the key thing is not to sit by and say, well, I'm not collecting any income, therefore I cannot pay. The NHC cannot know that that is the situation that you're facing. So you need to speak with your NHC officer and work out an amicable arrangement. We are very flexible as it relates to these, and we deal with schools regularly. And even up to now, we have cases where schools, we're giving them time to pay the outstanding contributions. But you have to work out an arrangement.
Okay. So that is important as well. So you can't just take it for granted that you haven't earned any income
Right.
because you are legally required
Yes,
to
ma'am.
file these returns. You must.
And
let us
remember,
know.
NHT is a payroll tax.
Mhm.
It's not a, when you talk about employers, it's not a tax that depends on profitability, right? We know that profit impacts your ability to pay,
Right.
but it's a payroll tax. It only arises where you have paid income to somebody.
Ah. Mhm.
So if you don't have any payroll, you don't have an NHT obligation, right? So once you have paid those salaries, and we take it as well that you have deducted these monies from the employees' salaries, then you have a duty to pay it over.
Right.
So therefore, even though we know that you have that
You have
constraint,
a duty to pay it
you have a
over.
duty to pay it over.
Duty.
So we know you have that constraint because you have the employer portion, and that employer portion has to come from the business income, right? So we say, come in and discuss with us, because at the end of the day, we have to account to the employees for the monies that were deducted from their salaries.
Right. We have another question coming in. It says, if an employee is applying for benefits and all have not been paid over, can the employer settle payments for that specific worker so they can get the benefit while clearing up the other outstanding? So let me read that question for you again.
Yeah.
If an employee is applying for benefits and all have not been paid over, can the employer settle payments for that specific worker so they can get the benefit while clearing up the other outstanding balance?
Well, unfortunately, because all employees would have been on a return that was filed, there is no way to specifically identify that this payment is for that employee on the return, because
Right.
the employer ABC Limited would have a return on the system. For example, say they did not pay 2019 and they owe $500,000 for the 50 employees that they had on the return. If employee A, right, what contribution was $50,000. If they gave us $50,000, we couldn't say this is for employee A,
Okay.
right? We wouldn't. This is only a part payment towards ABC Limited's return. But what ABC Limited needs to do to ensure that compliance can then say to the loans people, all right, we have an arrangement with this company to settle their balance. Therefore, you may move to process loans for these people because you have an arrangement. But if you don't come in and you only pay $50,000 and you have $450,000 outstanding, and we do not know how that will be paid, then that is when that will hold up the processing of that benefit for that employee.
Got you.
Right.
Okay. Understood. So we have another question here. It says, how would you treat interest incurred on past payments? Did we touch on that earlier about treating
Interest incurred on
Right.
past payments? Well, I'm assuming from this question that this person is saying because we have an amnesty,
Right.
if
Prior
I
to
paid some
2020.
interest already,
Mhm.
can I get it back? I'm assuming that that's what
Right.
this person meant. But no, that interest is already paid.
Mhm.
This amnesty is only for persons that have interest outstanding as we speak, right? So you wouldn't be able to get a refund of that interest, or for it to be, that payment to be allocated to another period.
Okay. All right. And we have another question here, and this is a very important question. So how do we make corrections? You're filing the returns, you're applying for the amnesty. you made a mistake.
Yes.
How do you correct that error?
Well, there's a facility, the system allows employers to make amendments to their returns. So you have, say for example, you file a return and Michael Mullins is on it,
Right.
but instead of $1.5 million, Michael Mullins earned $15 million last year, but you made a mistake and put
50, what kind of job does Mr. Mullins have? $15 million?
so you made a
Wow.
mistake and you put $1.5 million on
Right.
it. So you need to correct that, right? You can either file an amended return to say this is what Michael Mullins actually earned. So you'd file an amended return and put $15 million on it for Michael Mullins. Or you can just file what is called a supplemental return, right?
Tell me a
That is
little
a
bit about
return
that.
that is, as it says, supplement. So it is in addition to
Okay.
the original one. So you file that return with the difference that Michael Mullins to make up the 15
Okay.
million. So that return would have $13.5 million on it, right? So that when they are read together, it is $15 million for Michael Mullins.
Oh, so what you're doing on the supplemental is you're putting the difference between the sums.
Yes, yes.
So you're not going to put back the figure.
No.
Right,
Right.
okay.
Because why we advise sometimes to file a supplemental, because the original return sometimes might have gone through the full process,
Okay.
reconciled already, right?
Oh,
So we don't want to disturb that.
okay.
So if you leave off somebody off the original, or as I said, the previous amount was understated, you can file another return, which is a supplemental, to add the person that was missing from the first one and any additional income. An amended now would be absolutely necessary if, for example, now you indicated that Michael Mullins earned $15 million,
Right.
but really earned 1.5.
Okay.
So you couldn't do a supplement for that. You have to do the amended now to fix that problem, because 15 million would be in the system already. But to answer the question, there are facilities available so that employers can go on that same system and raise, right, and make amendments or corrections to previous filings.
Okay. So I just want you to quickly, I know we discussed it earlier, but just for persons, just for the benefit of those who are just joining us, to just quickly go through once again the importance of the SO1 and the SO2.
Yes. As I said, the SO1s are your monthly returns, right? The SO2 is the annual return. It is important to file these returns for one, accountability purposes, to keep track of your monthly payroll, right? To inform the government or the NHT in particular of the happenings as it relates to payroll information per month, right? For the employer, it is also important for them to be better able to manage their affairs as the year goes by. It is important as well as we try to administer benefits to employees, loans, because people come for loans right throughout the year. So we don't want to know their most up-to-date contributions. Previously, we would have to send an employee to their employer to find out was this person working with you from January to May, because the person come to us in June. We can now just go on the system
And just
check that and print it down, right? The employer doesn't necessarily have to provide that verification anymore, because it is there at our fingertips.
And this is why
Right.
it's important to, because can you imagine you have been contributing, you're an employee, you've been contributing, are you ready? You've been saving,
Yes.
are you ready to go on the market? You're just married, you say, house time now,
Yes.
right? I've done everything that I've done, house time now. Are you coming and you reach out to the NHT, because you can email us now for your eligibility letter. And you come in to us, or you contact us for your eligibility letter, and we say that, hi, we're not seeing anything
Absolutely.
for you.
And too often, and
on the
sometimes,
system.
Daniel, it's when that's the time when persons find out that no contributions were being
And they
deducted,
lose
were
out
being
on the
paid,
housing
were being paid for them.
opportunity.
So I will use this time to also encourage employees. Don't wait until either you leave the employment or you're ready for your benefit to verify that contributions are being paid for you. Visit NHT, call the NHT periodically to check if your contributions are being paid. Right? So you're ahead of the game. So when you're ready for your house, you don't walk into a surprise to hear that your name was not on the annual return. And also we have to encourage our employers
To do the right thing.
to do the right thing. Place all your employees on the annual return. Some employers have a misconception that it's after probation that they should start deducting monies from persons' salaries, and sometimes probation can last 6 months and to a year to some people.
Right.
The deduction of NHT contribution does not depend on that. From the first paycheck, as long as the person qualifies for NHT payments, meaning they meet the minimum wage requirement, they are below the age of 65, they are above 18 years old or 18 and above, you are supposed to deduct the money from the first paycheck as long as they qualify as an employee. Right? You have to make that deduction from the first paycheck.
So we have another question coming in here. My employers need to make a payment arrangement. I am the company's secretary. Can I come in on their behalf with an authorization letter to make the agreement?
Sure, as long as the authorization is from a senior officer in the company, the managing director, the director, then and it's properly stamped with the company stamp or witnessed by a notary, a JP, then the representative can act on behalf of the company.
Okay, so
Yes.
they can do that.
Yes.
Once the letter is authorizing them to do
Yeah, man.
so,
Once the
they
authorization
can do
is
that.
proper, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I think that's it. As I said before, if you have any questions, please do submit them in our chat. Our officer will be more than happy to assist you, or you can email us at compliance@nht.gov.jm. That is compliance@nht.gov.jm. You want to remind them of your email address?
Yes, my email is mmullins, that's M for Michael, mmullins @nht.gov.jm.
So remember to apply. Remember, in addition to your questions, if you have outstanding deductions, please apply for your waiver. We started in July,
Yes.
and we're going straight out
Oh.
until December.
Yes. Oh, and Daniela, one more thing I should mention about the amnesty, in terms of who wouldn't qualify. So if you have received a summons, then you wouldn't qualify for the amnesty. The reason
Okay.
being, once a summons is issued, the matter is now in the
Before the
jurisdiction of the court,
Ouch.
and then we couldn't now go behind the court and then make a separate arrangement. But we still encourage these persons to talk to us, and we'll see how best we could assist them. But those persons wouldn't ordinarily be included,
Included in
or
that.
the period for which you are at court wouldn't ordinarily be included in the amnesty period.
So you heard that before you get into the court system, submit your application today. And I just want to thank Mr. Mullins, who did an excellent job at outlining everything that I think that we need to know about the responsibilities of the employer, as well as our amnesty program. On behalf of the National Housing Trust and the NHT's compliance team, I just want to thank you for taking time out for being with us today. Again, if you have any questions, please email us at compliance@nht.gov.jm so we can get everything in order, because remember, housing is not just a place to stay. It's where persons create memories. It's where persons raise their families. It is an opportunity to build wealth. It's an opportunity to create generational legacy. It's an opportunity to build generational wealth. You know what I mean? Especially in these times, and I always tell people that housing is just one of those investments that never depreciates.
Yes.
Never, ever, ever, ever depreciates. Unlike a car, once you drive it off of the lot,
Absolutely.
it depreciates. Housing constantly appreciates, and I think it says something to our company when their employees can access housing and they put things in place for their employees to access
Absolutely,
housing.
I agree, Daniel. And so that's why we encourage our employers to because they have to think long term to pay their employees contributions. They have to think long term. Look at the benefits, as you said, to the employees. The benefits to the employer. A lot of times, right, because right now, Daniel, as the government seeks to, stimulate the economy after this pandemic, or throughout this pandemic, they have what is called a SERVE program, where monies are being made available to businesses. And a lot of times, in order to access these funds, you have to have a clearance letter. You have to have a tax compliance certificate. And if you're not up to date, you can't get this. So you can see the domino effect. If you don't pay your contributions, then it will affect your business because you can't get that money now that the government has on offer to retool your business to carry you through this difficult time. And in terms of on the employee side, remember Daniel, we have what is called a home grant for low income earners.
Right.
In order to qualify for that, you have to have a certain number of years of contribution, 7 years. So if you don't start to deduct the monies from the employee's salary from they start working,
I can't
you
talk
might
about
wait
the
a
home
year
grant
or
unless
you wait
you
2
mention
years.
the amount, Mr. Muddy. I said 2.5. I
2.5
said that
million
everywhere I
dollars.
go.
Right.
Up, you don't
Free
pay
money.
that back. Free
Right.
money. We said
Right.
free money.
And
You
that-
don't
right.
pay back
So-
that $2.5 million.
Right. So you have to ensure that you pay these monies because I have seen it in Daniel where an employee comes in, low income earner,
All the time.
they
All
qualify.
the
They
time.
would qualify for the grant if the employer had started the deductions or paying over the deductions from the time the person started working there. When you check, they only have 5 years. They tell you that they were working there 3, 4 years before, right? So that is a benefit denied right there. So that is why it is so crucial. The employers have to view things through that perspective as well, in terms of the welfare and the benefit of their employees,
Right.
and not just the bottom line in terms of securing their profits.
That's so important. And I have another question that came in. I asked about consideration for a basic school that neglected to make NHG payments for its teachers. It says, what consideration, I guess what they're asking is what consideration is given for basic schools that neglected to make NHG payments for its teachers?
All right, basic schools are a challenging group to deal with. Some of the teachers get a subsidy from the government, and some of them don't. So the school pays them a small, I would call it a stipend, and some of those who get subsidy get an additional amount from the school. So the NHT is supposed to be deducted from all these amounts. But invariably we find some of the schools, a lot of the cases because of affordability, struggling with collection of fees and all of that. So these schools are in dire straits in many cases.
Right.
And they find it difficult to take on expenditure in addition to providing meals and so on for the students. So what I would suggest in this case, if the school was not deducting the money or not paying it over, that employee should visit the NHT. We will approach the school to ensure that we get those returns for the years that were not filed, and then so that the employee can then have that benefit. So that is the only way to remedy that situation. Go to the school, get the outstanding returns for that person that was not
Right.
filed for, and have the relevant payments made, so that situation can be rectified.
Because we just want everything to just be worked out and be in
Absolutely,
balance.
because we cannot assign benefits to people who
We
are not
can't-
contributing, even though we are understanding of the situation and we know that it's not the employee's fault, but we still have to rectify that part before we can move to the front end and give a
Right.
benefit.
Because there's a law, if you're not putting into
Right,
something,
right.
you won't be able
Absolutely,
to get out.
absolutely.
That because then everybody would be able to access.
And
What
you're
is there?
open, yeah. something,
Right.
Right.
So I think those are all the questions that we have. I'm not seeing any more come in. So once again, on behalf of the National Housing Trust and our compliance team, thank you so much for taking time out to join us here today. Remember, please get your employee amnesty program applications going. You can submit the application to compliance at nht.gov.jm, or if you have a question, you can reach out to compliance at nht.gov.jm, and an officer would be more than happy to assist you in these times. It's so important for us to look out for each other, and please do remain safe. Thank you.
Me nah hear nothing,